This is a Spotlight Podcast Network production.
How they made me feel. I was having suicidal thoughts. That wasn't like me. I was in probably one of the darkest times in my life. I remember my pastor, Bishop Sherman Allen, giving me scriptures about the battlefield of your mind, and I remember reading that.
FEAR, fear. You have been so powerful in my life. And I realized that it doesn't matter who's in my corner. If you're present, that's all that matters. You had me afraid to be a creative in a room full of creatives. Afraid to fail, so most of the time I never even tried. But today, I'm leaving you behind. By fear, I'm gone.
Hello, I am Latoya Dorsey Johnson, and I welcome you to the Unfiltered Faith Podcast, where I talk about all things faith related, whether you're believing God for whatever it is. There are so many things to believe God for. So allow me to get started. I sort of kind of know what I want to talk about today, but I have no idea what direction God is going to take me today. You can prepare for something and then God lays something totally different on your heart. So I did want to talk about something specific that I experienced in my life. I guess you could say it's a testimony of God's healing power. So when I was in about the 6th grade, I was told that I needed to wear glasses. At the time, I was just told that I needed to wear glasses because I had trouble seeing. Was it far away or up close? I don't remember. Anyway, I started wearing glasses. I would have to sit in the front of the class because I couldn't see when I sat in the back. So I guess that means I was farsighted, I think. Anyway, so I started wearing glasses in the 6th grade. I was only supposed to wear them like when I was doing homework or if I was at school, but because I could see, like, who wouldn't want to just be able to see all the time? Like, why do you just want to walk around and things are blurry or you can't understand certain things or can't read things and all that? So I started wearing glasses in the 6th grade, and I wore glasses. Well, as you can see, I still wear glasses. So by about the 9th grade, I went to a specialist at Cornea Associates, and they told me that I had a rare eye disease called keratoconus. Say that 10 times fast. So basically what keratoconus is your cornea is shaped like a football. So where everyone else's is round shaped, mine is shaped like a cone, thus being why it's called keratoconus. So I didn't really understand what that meant back then. So as I got older, my vision progressively would get actually worse. So I believe, when was it? I was definitely out of high school. I'm trying to think, when was it? Had to be around I'd say around 2006 or 2005 when I went to an eye doctor. My manager at the time, I was working at a company called FedEx Kinko's, which now is just called FedEx Office. But my manager, Frankie Taylor, which is also my cousin's mom, so she referred me to Dr. Blake Hughes. Dr. Blake and his father, Dr. Craig Hughes, they had a eye clinic that I started going to. So when I worked for Frankie, the only thing I could afford on that salary was, well, it wasn't salary, it was hourly. Only thing I could afford was vision insurance. I couldn't afford health insurance. It was too expensive. And I didn't make, but I think I made like $8 an hour at the time. So I started going to Dr. Blake. Of course, he could see that I had keratoconus, and I believe it was around 2010, he recommended that I get a cornea transplant. So if you don't know anything about keratoconus, like I said, your cornea is shaped like a cone, more like a football than round like other people's. So it basically made my vision get worse over time. And I remember at one point, my eye doctor told me that I think he said I was legally blind in one of my eyes. So it was very necessary for me to have the cornea transplant so that I could be able to see. I had my son in 2007, and in 2010 is when I was due to have the cornea transplant. I believe it was September of 2010. So rewind a little bit. I had my son in 2007, went through some issues with his father, and I think I ended up starting school around that same year. I remember one time, let me back up. So I found out about the keratoconus situation when I was working at Phenix Kinko's. I only worked there for about a year and a half. So after working there for about a year and a half, I started working for Allstate Insurance Company. So when I worked at Allstate, I actually started working there in 2007. So when I switched jobs, I was able to afford not just vision, but I was also able to afford medical as well. Because a cornea transplant is actually not covered with just vision insurance. For those who have vision insurance, or maybe you don't, basically vision insurance covers like your exam. It covers a certain percentage of lenses and frames, and it wouldn't cover something medical like a surgery. So, like I said, my vision progressively was getting worse. I had a baby, had a toddler at the time. Of course, you want to put your child in little league and things like that. You want to be able to see your child on the field if they're playing, whether they're playing flag or whatever. So in 2007, I had Elijah. In 2009, me and Elijah's dad parted ways. So I think I enrolled in school. I want to say I enrolled in 2010. So here I am, single mom with a baby who's a toddler, and working full time, going to school full time. I was stressed, right? So I remember a time when I was having chest pains. So I told one of my coworkers, I said, I'm having chest pains. I think I need to go to the emergency room. So they called the paramedics. They wheel me out of work, and I go to the ER. I call my mom and my stepdad, and they meet me at the hospital. And my coworker is right behind me, Miss Dolores. She retired when I was working at Allstate, but anyway, Miss Dolores came to my rescue. She was there at the hospital along with my parents. So the doctor basically said, we did x-rays and what have you, and it's chondritis. I was like, what? Chondritis. Stress. Basically stress. So I explained to the doctor, I was like, yeah, I'm a single mom. pretty fresh out of a relationship with my son's dad. I'm working full time, like going to school full time, just trying to juggle it all. And then my doctor drops a bomb on me that I need to have a cornea transplant. If you've never had surgery, that is a scary place to be. So during that year, I kind of drifted into a depression. I remember my doctor prescribing, I think it was Xanax and Zoloft. Didn't like how they made me feel. I was having suicidal thoughts. That wasn't like me. I was in probably one of the darkest times in my life. I remember my pastor, Bishop Sherman Allen, giving me scriptures about the battlefield of your mind. And I remember reading that book by Joyce Myers called Battlefield of the Mind. I never finished reading the complete book, but there were things that I would pull out of that book that I would use. And then Joyce Myers came out with another book called Power Thoughts. So I never read Power Thoughts in its entirety, but I did go through it and I grabbed some tools that I started using so that I could pull down every stronghold and begin to think more positively about things, because I was, like I said, in a very dark place. So September of that year came. It was time for my cornea transplant. I just remember my heart beating outside of my chest is what it felt like. It was scary because I had never had something like that, had to experience anything like that. So if you don't know what a cornea transplant entails, let me give you a description. So they basically put you under. You're not completely asleep, but you are, think of it as a way of being asleep, but you can still kind of hear things around you. And I remember when I got to I think it was like an outpatient clinic in Hurst. When I got to their eye facility to get the transplant, and by the way, Dr. Blake did not do the surgery. He recommended me to a doctor, and his name was Dr. Who, H-U. So I was kind of on the edge about the whole thing, just all of it leading up to it, and then thinking about all the other things I had going on, and it was a lot. So I remember those scriptures that Pastor gave me. I remember nights when I would go to sleep literally with my head on the Bible, like it was a pillow, just battling all of the noise that was in my head. And I remember when I got to the facility to have my surgery, I believe it was my son's grandfather who had to take me, Larry Sr. So I had my Bible with me. I started reading scriptures and all the things. And I was like, are y'all going to give me anything before I have to go back? So they did. They gave me a Valium. Never had a Valium in my life. But basically, a cornea transplant, when you need something like a cornea transplant, is similar to needing an organ transplant. You basically have to wait for somebody to die, and they have to assess that person's eyes to see if their cornea is even one that should be used. So think about having to wait on somebody's demise just so I can receive vision. It was scary. Thus being why it was one of the darkest times in my life. So when I was there, they gave me a Valium, which it kind of started to help my nerves subside. Of course, I had already prayed and done all the things, read some scriptures. And I remember they had to set up an IV. So like I said, you're not completely asleep. And the reason you're not is because your eye is so close to your brain. So they don't want you to be brain dead, or they don't want you to be so out of it that you're not here, I guess is what you could say. I don't know how to phrase that. But what they had to do is, so it was this eye that I had the cornea transplant in. So they had to cover this one up, and they take, there's some type of thing they use to open up your eye, and they take like this, I can't think of what it's called, but it's circular. So they take this thing and it's basically like a blade, and they cut around your cornea, and they remove that cornea, and then they put on the new cornea. And I remember seeing splashes of blood, and then they had to sew on the new cornea. So they began, after they remove mine and put a new one on, they start to sew the new cornea on. So they completed the procedure. I lived. I survived. I had all this stress and anxiety about having this procedure, and all the things that led up to it and all that. It was over. So I remember when I went into recovery, the first face that I saw was my bishop. He was sitting there in a chair, and he started praying for me. He asked me how I was doing, of course, and then he began to pray for me. So the procedure was only a day surgery. They basically do the procedure and then send you home. And then you have to be on leave from work because, of course, after you've had eye surgery, you can't be it. Like my job was, well, my current job and my job back then was using a computer. So you can't do all the things, and it will cause strain to my eye and all the things. So had the surgery. It turned out good. I remember going back for my follow-up, and Dr. Who said everything looked good. And I would still have to go. Well, I still do to this day have to go to Dr. Who for follow-ups to make sure my cornea hasn't rejected, because just like with a kidney or a liver or even a heart, the transplant can reject. So all praise be to God. I had that transplant in 2010. We're in 2026, and you wouldn't believe how well I can see, but I'll get to that in a minute. So when I go to Dr. Blake, because I still have to go for my annual eye exams with my regular eye doctor as well, he always talks about how good my transplant looks. So after having the transplant, once my eye was healed and I was back at work and all the things, they wanted to look into other ways of bettering my vision. So I started by having contacts. I wanted to go from glasses to contacts. I wanted to be able to not have to wear these things. Of course, I can't see that good without them, but I didn't want to have to keep wearing glasses. And if you've ever seen my glasses and how thick the lenses are, you'll know why. So I was on my way to basically being legally blind if it wasn't for having a cornea transplant. So talk about having faith for something that you couldn't imagine, couldn't fathom having to go through. It was definitely, like I said, one of the darkest times in my life. It's been one of the most challenging things that I've had to experience. So outside of childbirth, before having a cornea transplant, I have never had any type of surgery or anything like that. So that's why it was such a hard thing to experience. But just think about all the times when we psych ourselves out, when we think or overthink things, and we assume that the worst case scenario is what's going to happen instead of praying for the absolute best outcome. I think a lot of us, oftentimes, we get so stuck in our stinking thinking, as Joyce Myers puts it in one of her books, that we basically cause ourselves to go into depression or cause ourselves to be sick and things like that because we're putting unnecessary stress on ourselves instead of just believing God for the unknown. Because if you've never had a surgery or you've never had any vision problems, you don't know what to expect when you have that happen to you. So fast forward to when I started wearing contacts. So I started wearing contacts, and the contacts are called gas permeable. So they're basically they're hard contact lenses. They're not the soft kind because my cornea is shaped like a cone. I can't wear those kind. I would have to wear a hard one. So I had those lenses in both eyes, both those contact lenses. And I would have to use a little mini plunger to pull those out every time. So over time, my eyes just couldn't take it. I would get eye abrasions. I would have eye ulcers. If you don't know what an eye ulcer is, no, it's not the same as when you have like a stomach ulcer. Eye ulcers are more caused from irritation. If you are a person who wears contacts and you've ever went to sleep with contact lenses, you do not want to go to sleep with some hard contact lenses in your eyes because they are very uncomfortable. And not just that, you're supposed to take your lenses out and put them in the solution, to clean them for the next use. So, then they came out with another procedure that I've looked into a few times, but I haven't done it. They have a procedure called NTAX. I think it's called NTAX. So the procedure is basically not as evasive as a corneal transplant, but they basically would kind of go in and thin out your cornea and kind of try to flatten it to basically keep the condition from progressing. So I've gotten estimates for how much it costs, and it's expensive. Of course, a cornea transplant was not cheap, but thank God for insurance because that helped. But Intex and cross-linking is the procedure that they do now, and it's less evasive, but it still costs. So with having to meet your deductible and all the things, most recently, my doctor was like, I don't think you really need that anymore. But let me back up. So I was wearing those hard contact lenses. They were causing eye ulcers and eye abrasions. So they came out with another contact lens for people like me that have keratoconus. The contact lens is literally like the size of this bottle cap. So I would have to take 3 fingers and sit that lens right here, fill it up with solution, open my eye, and stick it in there, and basically pray that I don't get an air bubble. I tried that briefly, and I was like, look, doc, I need my glasses. I like to be able to roll over and grab my glasses and put them on because don't nobody have time to add an hour to their morning trying to put in contacts. So the last time that I went to the eye doctor, my eye doctor said that he doesn't think I need to consider cross-linking or Intex. So this eye that I had the transplant is 2020. It's the only eye that's 2020. This eye, I don't know what it is, but it's pretty bad. If you've seen my lenses like I was showing you, you can see that it's thicker on this side than it is on this side. But thanks be to God, I won't have to have another procedure. And I pray that my condition does not progress. So if I could suggest that you take anything from what I've talked about today, is stop stressing yourself about stuff that you don't know is going to happen. Don't always go to the worst case scenario, because a lot of times, probably 99% of the time, what we think is going to happen in a situation is not what's going to happen. Just because the doctor says, oh, we need to do this, that doesn't mean that you're going to lose your sight because they need to do a cornea transplant, or that you're going to lose this or that. Now, there are times when we hope for the best situation or the best outcome, and then it's not the same of what we expect. But my advice would be, trust God through it all. Trust God that He knows us well enough and has our best interest at heart at all times. God is all knowing. He's all seeing. He knew that we would go through this before we ever experienced it. God knew that my vision would shift in the 6th grade, and then as an adult that I would need a cornea transplant. God already knew that. So there's no point in me stressing about something that God already knew was going to happen. God already knew He was going to heal my eyes in such a way that I wouldn't need another surgery. Do I have 20/20 in this eye? No, I don't. But guess what? I can see good enough in this one eye for both. Now, that's a word in itself. So believe God, trust God for everything. Because while we're trying to figure it out, God has already worked it out. Now, I had all these notes put together and all the things that I wanted to say today, but God has a way of rerouting our whole conversation and everything. But I did want to wrap up with a prayer for healing and health. Almighty God, you are the only source of health and healing. In you, there is calm, and the only true peace is in the universe. Grant each one of us, your children, an awareness of your presence, and give us perfect confidence in you. In all pain, weariness, and anxiety, teach us to yield ourselves to your never-failing care, knowing that your love and power surround us, trusting in your wisdom and providence to give us health, strength, and peace when your time is best, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. So I admonish you to believe God for your healing, whether it's through sight, whether it's whatever part of your body, whether it's healing a broken heart, whether it's healing friendships or family or whatever it is. Believe God, trust God, have faith in all things. I cannot end without talking about some wellness products from my wellness store. I just came from the most amazing convention last week, and listen, these products are needed now more than ever. That was the theme of the conference, now more than ever. While people are trying to figure out what to do with their finances as gas prices continue to increase, as grocery prices continue to increase, I feel very thankful and grateful that I was introduced to the wellness company, because not only do I get to save money, I also get a thank you check every time I refer a customer to the store and they shop. Like Walmart and Target could never. So these products, these three specifically, are what I use for perimenopause. So I am a woman of a certain age. I may not look 41, but I am. And a lot of women start going through the change at 35. Um, it may look like mood swings. It may look like hot flashes and night sweats and um, brain fog. It may look like a lot of things, but I'm grateful and thankful that I found some natural things that help. So the first product is Estradiol, natural support for menopause. So this one helps with the hot flashes. I think it tells you. So with age, your vision with reading can weigh a little bit. So the words are very small, but I will share that this gives you support for changing needs throughout menopause or perimenopause. A 3-in-1 herbal supplement that helps naturally promote women's health. It has soy, which supports bone health and helps relieve hot flashes. I'm not sure how to pronounce this, but Dong Quay helps promote uterine health and a healthy menstrual cycle. Black cohosh promotes hormone balance. So this will help you get them hormones in check, because when your hormones ain't right, you ain't right. So that's that product. Now that's just what's on the bottle. There are more details that I could go into on this product. And then along with that, I also take Mellow Out Magnesium. Now this, if I take this at night, it helps me sleep like a baby, like for real. During the week, I can't take a full scoop, because if I take a full scoop, I will oversleep. So I take half a scoop, and then on the weekends, when I can sleep a little longer, I will take a full scoop. Like I would take a full scoop like on a Friday night or a Saturday night, maybe depending on how early I have to get up on Sunday. So proper magnesium intake helps reduce occasional stress and increase calmness, supports muscle function and relaxation, promotes normal bone and heart health. So that's the Mellow Out Magnesium. And then, now this is my favorite, the Happy Pill, Luminex, supports a positive mental outlook. Cope better with the ups and downs of life, maintain a more balanced mood, reduce feelings of occasional stress, promote rest and relaxation, support physical and mental energy. So I take all three of these to help with my perimenopause symptoms. And when I tell you, these have been an absolute game changer. I was trying to figure out why I was so moody, and sometimes I would be kind of snappy and on edge. And I'm not talking when you're on your cycle. I'm talking like you are literally not even bleeding and you acting like a polar bear or any type of bear. You acting real grizzly like. So this Luminex has definitely helped regulate my mood. If you've ever heard me talk about my job, I work in insurance and I work in claims. And when I tell you, sometimes those people want you to do something yesterday that just happened today, and they just be wanting a lot, and they be very needy and just, like, will irritate the hell out of you. So I use these Mellow Out. I also take during the day, and it just keeps me in a mellow mood throughout the day. No, I don't be sleep at my desk when I take Mellow Out, but at night it relaxes you so that you can have a restful sleep. So I would recommend you get these, get a hold of me. I am Latoya Dorsey Johnson on Facebook. On Instagram, I am faithful_ventures. I'm on TikTok. I believe it's Health and Wellness with LaToya, or it might be Health and Wellness with Toya. Either way, you should be able to find me. You can inbox me on Facebook. You can email me at eldorse218@gmail.com. Thank you for tuning in. See you on the next episode. Peace.